On Christmas night, 1996, in Boulder, Colorado, a tragedy unfolded that would haunt America for decades. 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey, a child beauty queen adored for her charm and talent, was found murdered in her own home. Her death shocked the nation, ignited a media frenzy, and remains unsolved nearly 30 years later. This is the full story of the JonBenét Ramsey case, a mystery filled with contradictions, theories, and unanswered questions. Let's hear what the policeman has to say, and then we'll continue.
Hello, my name is Stephen Redfern, and I serve as the police chief for the city of Boulder, Colorado. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the Boulder Police Department to give an update on the investigation into the murder of JonBenét Ramsey. As many of you know, this horrible crime happened in December of 1996, and our officers responded to investigate. While I was not at Boulder Police 28 years ago, I have worked in policing for more than 20 years, and I want to assure you that our agency is committed to doing everything we can to bring justice to JonBenét and hold her killer responsible. So much of how law enforcement works has changed in the last 30 years. There are a number of things that people have pointed to throughout the years that could have been done better, and we acknowledge that is true. However, it is important to emphasize that while we cannot go back to that horrible day in 1996, our goal is to find JonBenét Ramsey's killer. Our commitment to that has never wavered. For years, our detectives have partnered with multiple agencies across the country, including our federal and state partners, like the FBI and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, as well as several outside forensic labs and DNA experts, to evaluate the latest advancements in technology, viable tips, and investigative leads. Our collaboration also includes the Colorado Cold Case Review Team, which is a panel of outside experts brought together in December of 2023 to review this case, generate additional investigative recommendations, and determine if updated technologies and/or forensic testing might produce new intelligence or leads to solve this case. That review took a year to prepare for and included an intensive effort to digitize all evidence to create a comprehensive and searchable database containing thousands of information files. Those files include more than 21,000 tips, over 1,000 interviews, which were conducted across 17 states and 2 foreign countries, samples from more than 200 different individuals, including handwriting, DNA, fingerprints, and shoe prints, nearly 2,500 pieces of evidence, and roughly 40,000 reports, with more than 1 million pages documenting the investigation. A fresh inventory of all collected evidence was made available for investigative review, which would not have been possible without the assistance of the FBI. The Cold Case Review Panel gave us a lengthy list of recommendations, which we are continuing to work through and evaluate. And though that review may have ended, our collaboration with those entities continues to this day. I know that our community would like to know more information and specifics on our progress, but like any major criminal investigation, there is no way that we can share that information publicly without compromising the integrity of this case and any future prosecution by the District Attorney's Office. What I can tell you, though, is that we have thoroughly investigated multiple people identified as suspects throughout the years, and we continue to be open-minded about what occurred as we investigate the tips that come in to detectives. I can also tell you that detectives are regularly investigating some aspects of this terrible crime, and I receive updates frequently. We are hopeful that the renewed public attention will generate more tips, and we encourage anyone who has any information to contact our detectives at the following email: bouldersmostwanted@bouldercolorado.gov. In the interest of transparency, I also think it's important for the community to know that our department has had ongoing conversations with JonBenét's family, the last of which occurred in mid-2024, and we are committed to continued open dialogue. JonBenét would have been 34 years old this year. She deserved to grow up and live her life to the fullest. Instead, it was brutally taken from her. Of course, those who loved and knew JonBenét continue to grieve. This crime also haunts the Boulder community, especially every officer and detective who's ever been a part of this investigation. Every single one of them thinks about her and would love nothing more than to bring justice to her memory. I know the Boulder Police Department has not talked a lot about this investigation publicly, but that's, again, because no one wants to jeopardize any potential prosecution of a suspect. We must constantly balance the release of any information in an active and open investigation with the public's right and desire to know what's going on. To the extent that news coverage, documentaries, and miniseries keep JonBenét's memory alive and could perhaps spark new information, we welcome any coverage that might allow us to finally bring the killer or killers to justice. At the end of the day, we must not forget that regardless of everything that has or has not transpired since 1996, a 6-year-old girl is dead, and we will continue to do everything in our power, along with our partners, to solve this case. Ideally, we would be able to go back and prevent this awful crime from happening, but sadly we cannot. However, moving forward, we're committed to investigating every tip and lead that comes our way. I beg anyone that has information that has not been previously shared with us to contact us, and that includes those responsible for this crime. Please help us in our efforts to secure justice for JonBenét.
JonBenét Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia. She was the youngest child of JonBenét Ramsey, a successful businessman, and Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen. The family later moved to Boulder, Colorado, where they lived in a large, elegant home. JonBenét quickly became known in child beauty pageants. By age 6, she had already won titles such as Little Miss Colorado and National Tiny Miss Beauty. Her mother proudly showcased her talents, while her father provided financial stability. To outsiders, the Ramseys seemed like the perfect American family. But behind this image of success, a nightmare was about to strike. On the morning of December 26, 1996, Patsy Ramsey dialed 911. She reported that her daughter was missing and that she had found a ransom note demanding $118,000 for JonBenét's safe return. The amount was suspiciously close to John Ramsey's annual bonus. Police arrived quickly, but the investigation was flawed from the start. The crime scene was not properly secured, and friends and family were allowed to move freely through the house. Hours later, John Ramsey himself discovered JonBenét's body in the basement. She had suffered a fractured skull and was strangled with a garrote fashioned from a paintbrush handle. The ransom note became one of the most puzzling pieces of evidence. It was unusually long, 3 pages, and written in a style that seemed amateurish. Handwriting experts debated whether Patsy Ramsey could have written it, but no conclusive match was ever proven. The note's strange language and excessive detail raised suspicions that it was staged. From the beginning, investigators were divided. Some believed the Ramseys were involved, while others suspected an intruder. The police made critical mistakes, failing to secure the crime scene, contaminating evidence, and allowing the body to be moved before proper forensic analysis. DNA samples taken from JonBenét's clothing pointed to an unknown male, but the identity of that person has never been discovered. The Ramseys were questioned extensively, but no charges were filed. Burke Ramsey, JonBenét's 9-year-old brother, was also considered a suspect by some theorists, though he was never formally accused. The murder quickly became a national obsession. JonBenét's pageant photos were splashed across newspapers and television screens. The case was covered in documentaries, talk shows, and tabloid headlines. The Ramseys faced relentless public scrutiny, with many believing they were guilty despite the lack of evidence. Over the years, theories multiplied. Family involvement. Some believed Patsy accidentally harmed JonBenét and staged the ransom note. Others suspected John or Burke. Intruder theory. Evidence of a broken basement window and unidentified DNA suggested an outsider. Cover-up theory. Some argued the police mishandled the case so badly that the truth may never be known. In 2008, advanced DNA testing cleared the Ramsey family of involvement. The samples found on JonBenét's clothing belonged to an unidentified male, not to any family member. This revelation shifted suspicion away from the Ramseys, but it did not solve the case. JonBenét Ramsey was laid to rest in Georgia, beside her mother Patsy, who died of cancer in 2006. Her father John has continued to speak publicly, insisting on the family's innocence and calling for justice. Burke Ramsey, now an adult, has given rare interviews, maintaining that he had no involvement. Nearly 3 decades later, the murder remains unsolved. It is one of America's most infamous cold cases, symbolizing both the fragility of innocence and the failures of justice. The JonBenét Ramsey case is more than a crime story. It is a haunting reminder of unanswered questions. How could such a horrific act occur inside a family home? Why has the killer never been found? What do you think happened that night in Boulder? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This is only the beginning. We will continue to explore the darkest and most mysterious true crime cases.